Greeting ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Asian Vision Dialogue. Meet me, Sothearoth, the host of today's program. The topic of our discussion today is about Cambodia-Vietnam Relations, achievement and ways forward. We have Dr. Kosal as the guest of honor today. Dr. Kosal is an associate professor of political science at the Brooklyn Center, the City University of New York, and he's also the advisor to the Asian Vision Institute, AVI. So greeting Dr. Kosal.
Thank you for having me on your talk show.
So, Dr. Kosal, in the recent decade, we have acknowledged that the relation between Cambodia and its neighboring country has actually leaning or moving in a good progress and a good directions. So, specifically for Cambodia and Vietnam relation, can you just give us your perspective on the current status of the political and non-political relation between the two countries?
The relationship between Cambodia and Vietnam has been moving in the right direction.
Yep.
Let me tell you why. One of the most important strands of new relationship between Cambodia and Vietnam is the deep personal and emotional tie between the ruling party of the two countries, going back to 1979. With Prime Minister Hun Sen, who left the country at a very young age, 26 years old, in June 1977 to Vietnam to seek support from Vietnam, and Vietnam helped build up the militaries and also topple the Pol Pot regime. So that kind of emotional foundation, I think, is still very important today. And I think it has been carried on to the second generation of the leadership of the two countries and the two parties. Most recently, His Excellency Hun Manet made an important visit. He represents not just the military, but also a leader in waiting, the Prime Minister in waiting. He represents the youth wing of the ruling party. So he conducted a wide range of meetings with the leadership of the Vietnamese army, with the Vietnamese Communist Party, and also with the Vietnamese government. So these are all-rounded, high-level exchanges of top leadership visit. It's very critical to kind of deepening and widening that emotional and revolutionary ties between the leadership of the two countries. And I think that it's very important that it carry on from the first generation to the second generation. In Vietnam too, we are seeing that the revolutionary family, the second generation of the revolutionary family, are now in power. And Cambodia, the second generation, are leadership in waiting, or some of them already in the government. So this emotional and personal tie is very fundamental. It's a top-down approach, but it's very fundamental to deepening other types of all levels of cooperation between the two countries. So it's moving in a very positive trend.
So what is the prime or prioritized fields of cooperation that Cambodia and Vietnam should focus in order to deepening the relation both in political and non-political field?
Beside the top leadership relation, I would say that springing out of that close leadership tie between the top leadership, the security sector is fundamental. Security sector on top of the militaries and defense sector cooperation. We have seen frequent exchanges at the top level of the militaries on both sides, right? That expand from traditional security in terms of border, crossing, maritime cooperation, maritime patrol, to non-traditional security, such as the military now playing a role in humanitarian relief. In the economic sector, we are seeing the uptick of economic exchanges between the two countries. Bilateral trade has increased by at least 20% this year to $6 billion in terms of bilateral trade between the two countries. And another area that I would like to see is the cross-border trade between the two. I know that there have been some discussion between the two governments about turning the border area into the border of peace and trade. Right? Border trade is critical for the people on both sides of the border. The third topic I would like to see more is the physical connectivity, right? In terms of infrastructure, roads and train. Right now, if you want to travel to Ho Chi Minh City, it will take you about 6 hours. Soon we're going to see that people can go from Phnom Penh to Ho Chi Minh City in 2 hours. So the amount of time of traveling from city Phnom Penh to Ho Chi Minh will be cut by very short. Right? We can go there in a very short time. So physical connectivity is fundamental for the two countries on top of the border trade. I would stress another issue is the people connection. Right? I think it has not been the main focus every year is about 1 million Vietnamese coming to visit Cambodia, and Cambodia is about 200,000, if I'm not mistaken, would visit Vietnam. I think that people connectivity is going to be fundamental to have a deeper understanding and sharing of a common destiny between the two countries. The people, Cambodian people and Vietnamese people, are not culturally similar, to be clear. But there's emotional tie, emotional connection between the two people, anti-colonial memory, right? Going back to 1979, the sister province model by Vietnamese province cities came to help the city and provinces of Cambodia after the genocide. So I read enormously the amount of information at the time. This, I think, ought to be an emotional tie, the tie between the two countries. The emotional tie is very fundamental, going back to 1979, when province helped province, city helped province. For example, Ho Chi Minh City came to help Phnom Penh. Vietnam was a friend in need at the time, and I think that kind of emotional foundation will pave the way for a deeper connection between two countries.
So based on your observation, is there any challenges between the two country relations? And if so, what are the key challenges?
But the key challenges are obviously 84% of the land border have been resolved. And that is a major achievement that lead to kind of turning the border of territorial dispute into a border of peace and development. But the 16% remain controversial, and the maritime boundary remain a problem, remain a major problem in these two countries. The rising anti-Vietnamese nationalism in Cambodia, and obviously is a major problem. The issue of the differences between the two countries with respect to Vietnamese residents is another major issue. The Vietnamese refer to this community as Cambodians of Vietnamese origins. But the Cambodians refer to this group of Vietnamese residents as Vietnamese immigrants. So there's fundamental differences between the status and identities of the Vietnamese residents in Cambodia. That's going to be a thorny issue going forward. And of course, the opposition party will continue to pick on that issue to basically drive a wedge between the ruling party in Cambodia and Vietnam. But I think looking forward, this is really just my opinion, and I think that Cambodia and Vietnam should continue to deepen personal tie between the top leadership of the two countries. But I think fundamentally the two countries ought to think of new way to deepen that relation. I would suggest that they should be thinking not just in terms of self-interest, moving away from traditional self-interest toward a more relationship dominance. Why? Because Cambodia and Vietnam has this emotional foundation, a revolutionary relationship that can, if you move from a kind of self-interest dominant to a relationship dominance, other things that we can see coming would be, we would see each other in terms of the two countries in terms of reciprocity. So win-win cooperation on border issue, on trade issue, on immigration. So all these issues can be resolved if we have this sort of intimate and important relationship, if both countries recognize the intimacy and the importance of the relationship in resolving those disputes. Second, we can think about in terms of interrelated. The two people are closely related. You cannot move, whether you like it or not, you cannot move Cambodia out of this part of the Indochina. Vietnam, likewise. So we got to coexist. So coexistence, be interrelated, interdependent, reciprocity. These are the kind of things that spring out of a relationship dominance. If you and I are intimate and we see each other as important, then we can resolve all these issues. So in short, we're moving away from self-interest, just my interest, at the expense of yours, toward a more shared interest.
So we've seen that besides the bilateral relation, Cambodia and Vietnam are also member of some type of multilateral platform. So do you think that the position or the relation between Cambodia and Vietnam in multilateral platform are actually the same as in the bilateral platform? And like the relation in the multilateral platform has actually give any good impacts on the development of the two countries?
In fact, bilateral relationship between Vietnam and Cambodia is a lot easier to accomplish, a lot easier to build on. But at the multilateral level, you have many voices. You know ASEAN better than anybody. So ASEAN is based on consensus. It's very difficult to reach any decision. Very difficult, time-consuming, very controversial. Everybody comes to the table with their national interests. And so at the multilateral level, I think that one of the top priorities that Vietnam, Cambodia seek to achieve is to prevent war in the region, right? To basically constrain the rivalry between the United States and China, to make sure that war will not break out in the region. Because if war break out in the region, small country like Vietnam, well, Vietnam is small, Vietnam is a middle power, but small country like Cambodia will bear the brunt of the war, right? So I think that it's much more difficult to achieve anything on the sort of multilateral level. But the one thing they would try to do is to make sure that they would steer ASEAN to play a more central role in preventing war as a conflict manager.
So thank you, Dr. Pat Kosal, for spending your priceless time attending in our program, and quite interesting in your recommendations on the ways forward of both country relations. So Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our episode today has now come to an end. Thank you for watching.